right, as always, we thank our crew, Juan, and all of the guys who make it happen for us. Big Yeshikoach, and we're going on a little break over the next couple of weeks, so tremendous Hakar Satov, Joel, Jeff, Ricky, the whole Chevra, Yehuda, Yossi. It's a team effort, and we really appreciate it. And Mirz Hashem, we'll be back on the other side. So we want to thank the Gilbert family of White Plains, sponsoring in memory of Michael's beloved uncle Marvin Pinellas. Okay, Moshe Chaim ben Shalom Alevi in commemoration of his Yortzeit, and the Weinbergs, Barbara and Jerry, in memory of Jerry's father Yisachar Dov ben Yoav Yuda, in commemoration of his Yortzeit on the second day of Pesach. Then Hashem Shabbalios, and we will learn Li'ilui Nishmatam. All right, here we go. So we're going to see two pieces this morning. One related to Parshas Vayikra, because like for Parshas Vayikra, it's Shabbos. It's Shabbos HaGadol. Usually Shabbos HaGadol is more Parshas Tzav. It's even more Parshas Tzav. If I look at my Kli Yakar, I have like no markings because we never talk about it. But I feel like we could give a nice, actually really nice kudos to Vayikra and a very beautiful piece that relates to this, like Vila Hashkacha. Actually, an assist Ari Raskus left to Gabe Raskus, who sent me a piece that like really fully related to this. And then another piece about the Seder. Here we go. Vayikra el Moshe v'gomer. So what's fascinating about Sefer Vayikra is the beginning is this Aleph Ze'ira, they call it, right? The small Aleph that it says really Vayikar. And there's this little Aleph, it's in the Torah written that way, a little Aleph. It's kind of like Lahavda, like in the Purim story, right? You have the little letters in the children of Haman, Lahavdil. There's something unique going on. What does it teach us? So Aleph Shel Vayikra, Kitan, Kilu Nemar Vayikar, as if it says, and it happened. Not that it was like, a designated call, but it was just a happen, a chance, encounter with God. V'tamo Shel Davar La'ashvot Nevuat Moshe El Nevuat Bilam. And the idea is to equate the prophecy of Moshe with the prophecy of Bilam, which is like, why the heck would you want to do that, right? That doesn't sound very good. Why would we want to equate Moshe and Bilam and their prophecy? Shemar Bola is shown by Ikar because when it comes to Bilam in Parshas Balak, it uses the language Vayikar every time God gives his prophecy to Bilam. So it's like similar. Vayikar, same thing with Moshe. Uch Moshe Nemar Lo Kam B'Yisrael Ke Moshe Od Avabu Mas Olam Kam. There wasn't another prophet like Moshe, as we say at the end of the Torah, right? But in Yisrael there wasn't a prophet like Moshe, but within the nations of the world there was. Who is that? So that's Bilam. We can't explain that Bilam and Moshe are the same in prophecy. That's very difficult to say. Chalila, God forbid, should we say that? Rather, this is what it meant to say. And obviously, Moshe is a completely different person of character and moral standing, and Bilam is he's a talented guy. That's what Bilam is. He's a talented guy. But he doesn't have, the ethical makeup to actually be, a prophet of the Jewish people. But here's what it means. Shemoshe hisig yoter mima shahaya ra'ui lahasig. That Moshe, what he was able to comprehend, what he was able to achieve, was more than actually his talents and his abilities actually had. He pushed himself. Right? Like you think about athletes, you think about people who go, who can think outside the box, who go above and beyond what anyone thought they could accomplish, and look what they did, right? Everyone says about, Michael Jordan, right? What do they say about Michael Jordan? About his JV team, right? JV high school. He didn't make his JV basketball team as a sophomore, right? Michael Jordan, right? So what did he do? He pushed himself, right? And he kept going, right? Lahavdil, Moshe Rabbeinu, Me'elaf Alfei Abdallah, so major difference, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, he was able to accomplish more than really he was born with. As it says, how he knew God. Asher yadat Hashem lo nemar. It doesn't say that he knew God. Yida'o ela lomar lach shu mitzad achanato lo yadat Hashem al zeh ha'othem. And what it really means to say is Asher yida'o Hashem. He made himself know Hashem, but based on the way he was born, based on the abilities that he had, he actually wouldn't have been really able or capable of doing everything that he did. Kim Hashem yida'o v'natan lo tosfo shefa. He pushed himself. He pushed, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu responded in kind, and and gave him grace. Right, like we say, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha. How do we finish it? Bichuneka. Why do we say that? It's actually a beautiful word. I never thought about this before. May Hashem enlighten you with wisdom. Bichuneka. There's only so much we can understand, but then we need God to help us with like an extra piece of it. That's bichuneka, to grace us with his knowledge, understanding, enlightenment. Be Yisrael, Rotzalom, Rebbeschus Yisrael. And then when it says Lokam be Yisrael, right, Moshe, it was in the merit of the Jewish people. V'chol shar nevi'ei Yisrael kol echad lo hisig yoter mikidei hachanaso. But so all of the other prophets of the Jewish people, they were born with it, right? They had it. They had the chops, right? Again, I'm going to give you a lahavdil, but it's a good way to understand, like metaphorically, right? If you're in the world, like in a Star Wars universe, in a Harry Potter universe, right? There are people who were born, right, in Harry Potter world, right? What happens? If you had certain wizarding capabilities, what happened? You got a note when you were, 7 years old, 8 years old, right? And say, oh, you're invited to come to this school. In Star Wars world, right? Like there were all these people who had, who were Force-sensitive children. And they noticed them, they recognized them, and then, they could make it, they could do it. In the same vein, in prophecy, they had that also. They say that they had people who had, children were born, and they had certain faculties, certain capabilities of hearing certain things, seeing certain things, and, ultimately, there were many other prophets. The ones we know about are Yirmiyahu and Yeshayahu and, and all Yechezkel, and all of those individuals. However, there were a whole lot more that didn't make the cut. There are a whole lot of other books, right? They find in like the Qumran and the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? There are other books. I never heard of that prophet. I never heard of that because they didn't make it, right? They didn't have the chops, right? They didn't have what it takes.
Non-prophet.
What?
Non-prophet.
Right, non-prophet. Exactly, non-prophet. Right. So Moshe is the only prophet that actually wasn't meant to be, all that he ended up being, but he pushed himself and he was able to do it, and Hashem, again, granted him that grace. And Bilam was the same way. Bilam was born, he had certain capabilities, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him a little bit more, gave him a gift, and gave him more. Why? For one reason, so that he could bless the Jewish people. Ma tova alecha Yaakov. To this day, I walked into shul, I said, Ma tova alecha Yaakov. Right? It was all for the zechus of Yisrael. But of course, he was nothing like Moshe. Point being that anything that you achieve that's above your pay grade, above your actual capabilities that Hashem gave you as a gift, that's happenstance. You're not in control of that. So that's actually the pshat of Vayikra. Al-Kei Nemar Lashon Vayikra, it's a gift from God. B'Moshe u'Bilam, Lo Rocha Yushavim B'Bazeh, B'Masha Haita B'Shneim Hasagami Krit Nosaf, Ala Ra'oi Lahem, Mitzaratz Mutam. And that's why it says that B'Davka about Moshe and Bilam, and that's why you have the word Vayikra, right? But with the little aleph, saying, look, Hashem gave that to them. Like they didn't deserve it. Well, I guess Moshe deserved it, but they weren't in control of whether they would get it or not, right? You could push, and then not get, what you're after, and not get what you're looking for. But Hashem gave it. Ubezemi Yushav, second paragraph, Mashpir Shvashi Vayikar, Lashon Arai Lashon Tuma, Vayadai Be'echad Me'an Litain, Hebdel Ben Vayikar Vayikra, Elafisha Rashi sover gamkin shedavos Moshe Isa b'mikra below be'etzem mitzad hachanato. Ulfizeh kashalo lama lo nichtav Vayikra below aleph klal. Wait a minute. If you wanted to say that Moshe, right? It's a good question, right? If you want to say, okay, Moshe and Bilam, yeah, they were the same in that sense, and the gift, is, Hashem giving you if you push, further than what you're capable of. So why does it say Vayikra with a little aleph? What should it say? How should this sefer begin? Vayikra. It shouldn't say Vayikra at all. There shouldn't be a little aleph, even a little aleph. Okay, fine, it's a little aleph. No, there shouldn't be a little aleph at all. Al-Kain ba k'metaritz v'lomar lefi shelashon Vayikra mashma l'shon hara dainu hamikra umashma gam l'shon tuma. Because Vayikra comes from the language of, that's like a temporary happenstance, it happened upon, him or whatever. And it's a language of impurity. Like, you're not really worthy. V'zeino shayach klal klape Moshe. How can we say that about Moshe, God forbid? Chalila. L'kach nichleva aleph eitzel Moshe. Therefore, you do have the aleph. The aleph's there, it's Vayikra, it's different. It's a call, it's a clarion call, right? To Moshe with purpose. Lotzio min lashon mikra shel tumeh, to not think that, God forbid, he's connected to Bilam and his, lack of moral scruples, etc. When we call makom nichtava aleph ze'ira likrot Vayikra lahorot, shigam nevuah Moshe ta'arai v'mikra mitzad yotano safal achanato. But again, why is it mentioned a little aleph? Why does it say it in a little aleph, not in a big aleph? To say, you know what? There's something really beautiful about Moshe, right? To teach you that, hey, you can do this. Now, it's actually famous Rambam. Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva, Rishus nesuna lechol adam, a person has the ability, right? The Rishus, literally, you have the option, right? You have the ability, permission to become as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Anyone can. And as terrible as Yeravam ben Nevat. How do you do it? By your actions, by your deeds, by your behaviors. You keep pushing. You keep growing, right? You say, no, I want more. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless you. And that's the pshat, okay? That's the idea. So skip ahead, but it shows a beautiful, there's just a beautiful lesson about Moshe Rabbeinu to show you that, we should never be satisfied. You should never say, this is who I am. All right, I'm an angry person. All right, so I lose my temper once. I'm a lazy person, so I lose my, right? This is what I'm capable of in learning. Right? I can only do this. Or, you could gravitate towards certain kinds of learning and deepen that, and that's beautiful. But no, we can do it. We can make time. In this day and age, it's amazing. What, every after Mincha Marav or every Shachris, Phil Fried is listening to a 5-minute Mishnah, right? You're going through Mishnah 5 minutes a day. Unbelievable. No, you have it. You don't have 5 minutes. You don't have 5. Everyone has it, right? And all of us have the ability to push forward and work. So check out this piece from the Reb Judah Michel, the Baderech HaGadol. Of course, it's about the Kutzker. On Seder night, Reb Simcha ben Shishcha gave his devoted student Reb Nachman Mendel of Kutsk a very large goblet for the Arba Kosos. Why? Because he liked to drink. No. The purpose of the 4 cups, he said, is to reveal in a person the 4 lashonos of Geula, terms of redemption hidden in them. And nichnas yain yatzasod. When wine goes in, then the secrets come out. Meaning, here I want to bring out in you whatever you have inside you. It's going to come out through the 4 cups, right? It's going to redeem you. When wine goes in, the secret comes out. Het groisen mechdarf a groisen kais. He says you have a groisen mayach, right? You have a groisen mayach. You have a really big head, not arrogant, God forbid. You have an amazing intellect, right? You have a groisen mayach. So then I'm going to give you darf a groisen kais. I have to give you. I'm impelled to give you a big cup. In other words, the Kutzker needed a large amount of wine to break through his intellectual status quo, leap over his inner barriers, and be megale his true self, right? And the idea is, right, that everyone needs to hey, maybe I can make the cup a little bit bigger this year. I mean, do that at your own risk at the Seder. But metaphorically, maybe I can make the cup a little bit bigger. Maybe, right, I can match it, right? Don't stop. We should never stop because we don't know what's hidden within us. Look at Moshe Rabbeinu. It's amazing. Look at Moshe Rabbeinu. Like Bilam? Crazy. But no, that's the point, right? Moshe had these latent capabilities, and he was able to get them out by just pushing forward, by saying, I want more, right? I talked about this actually at Simon's Bar Mitzvah. in Parshas Kitisa, go to the back page. In Parshas Kitisa, it says how Moshe asks to see God's face, right? And God says, no, you can't see my face, you can only see my back, right? But later on in Sefer Bamidbar, when Miriam and Aaron are speaking about Moshe, right, the Lashon Hara, the whole piece, and it's like, oh, he's a Navi like we're Naviim, like why is he leaving his wife? I don't understand. And what does Hashem say? Hashem comes to him and says, no, you don't get it. I speak to him, panim el panim, pe'al pe'al daber bo. Literally, he sees my face. We talk mouth, like we're like best friend. We're talking mouth to mouth. Like, what do you mean? I thought he wasn't allowed to see Hashem's face. I thought he couldn't do it. So it says, I think it was the Tfer Shlomo who said, no. What happened? Moshe didn't take no for an answer. Moshe pushed. It's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to see your face. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to make you. I'm going to compel you to actually, give me that gift of being able to see you in a way that you didn't think I was capable of. Right? All of us have that ability, and we'll see now in this piece how it can all come out on Seder night, where we have that opportunity. Look at the bottom right. See, it says Inyan Arbakosos. So this is the Shemi Shmuel, okay? Shmuel Borenstein. Inyan Arbakosos uPesach Matzo Maror Yesh Alomar Dine B'Medrash Shili Parshas Vayeshev the Arbakosos Bnei Adalakosos Shaltar Ela Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mashkes Umasolom. So on the one hand, he says that the Arbakosos. By the way, I apologize. I tried to make it bigger, but the copy machine just wasn't buying it. So we'll deal with it. So on the one hand, the Arbakosos represent the 4 cups of Tar Elach, 4 cups of poison that will ultimately, give to drink to our enemies, right? Right now, Ismail Haniyeh, Yechia Sinwar, Hassan Nasrallah, and you take your pick, right? Fuad Shukar are drinking the 4 cups, Baruch Hashem, of poison they should enjoy. We're in their place. In their place in hell. And ukenegdon HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashkes Yisrael arba kosos shel Yeshua. So the nations of the world are going to drink that, and we're going to drink the 4 cups of salvation, right? So he says, what's really going on? He says, Perish yayin tar elah. What does it mean, the poisonous wine? Ha'otemet alei ve'otfo. What does the poisonous wine do? It closes up your heart. It's not physical, right? It's talking spiritual. It closes up your mind, right? It impacts you. On the one hand, this concept of this cup of salvation is the opening up of our hearts. When we talk about our hearts, not just emotional, it's intellectual. We've talked about this before, right? Open my mind, my neshama, my intellect to your Torah, right? So it's opening up your heart to Hashem, opening up your mind, understanding things the way you never understood them. And the Zohar says that the heart is the Gan Eden, literally the paradise, the Gan Eden, right? Paradise, the Eden of a person. And every person, Sha'adam Olam Katum, because every person is a mini universe, a mini world. So we have a Gan Eden inside, that's our heart. Ukamo Gan Eden, Shesharab Sigurim, Lubal Yikanei Sham, El Aroyula, Kain Halev. And he says, just like in Gan Eden, there are gates. Right, and we're going to say in Hallel, Pizchuli Shari Tzedek, Avavamo Liyah. Right, we're banging on the gates and say, let me into Gan Eden. The gate's closed. Let me in. And what do they answer back? Zashar La Hashem Tzadikim Evovo. Or the Gemara says there's an answer back. No. This is only a gate for the righteous. Only the righteous can walk in. Okay, it's a famous story about Alexander the Great and whatever. Right, but so there's a gate, but so most of the time it's closed. So he says, only people who are deserving of going in. Same thing with the heart. We have to be deserving of it, right? It's not open. But galus halev sagur ve'atum v'ukos hatarela. In galus, in exile, the heart is closed, meaning our mind is closed. We can't picture, right? We can't get out. People ask, how could it be? How many people what percentage of the Jewish people actually left Egypt? According to the Chazal, 20%. 80% died in Egypt. Understand that? Like, what does that mean? Oh, my students ask me, what does that mean? Hashem killed them. They were bad. Hashem killed them. I said, no. I said they couldn't imagine leaving. It wasn't that they were terrible. They just couldn't imagine it. They're like, we're slaves. Like, what do you mean? How could we imagine going? This is what we know. This is all we know in our life, right? They had that slave mentality. People think about people who died in the Holocaust, right? They knew, they saw, they heard the stories, but they said, it can't be. They have a whole life in Poland and wherever they were. In Germany, actually, the irony is that in Germany, a lot of people got out, right? Because they actually saw it, right? Everyone else is like, I don't know, we're good, what's going to be somewhere else? I don't, who knows, right? So it's hard to get out. You're closed. That's the idea. When your heart is in galus. The galus, right? So when your heart is closed, that's not a good thing. Your mind is closed. But there is a positive. What's the positive? That you don't allow external forces in. Sometimes we allow too much in. We don't filter the way that we need to, and we're impacted by the outside world, society, what people say, etc. Right? So he says, now skip down to the middle underline lines. The famous Kutzker. Zikeni ha'admor HaGadol mikatsk. Just like he says, my grandfather, the Kutzker Rebbe, right? Shemi Shmuel is the son of Rav Avram Borenstein, the Sakachava Rebbe, right? Who was the son-in-law of the Kutzker Rebbe. So he's quoting his grandfather, my great-grandfather. Right? Pasuk says, we say it in Kriyat Shema every day, these words should be upon your heart. What's the problem with that? It should be upon your heart. Where should the words be? Not on your heart. Where should they be? In your heart. They should be in your heart. What's pshat? So it says the Kutzker, Shalev itim sagur, because very often the heart is locked, is closed. Rather, said the Kutzker in classic Kutzker language, the words, when you hear inspiring Torah, when you hear things that are important, meaningful to you, and you're not ready to accept it, he says, put it on your heart as like a rock, like an even, mamish, like a boulder, so that when your heart opens up, during times when your heart opens up, what will happen? It'll sink right in. At special times when your heart opens up, your mind opens up, then it'll go and it'll fall. It'll fall into the depths of your heart. Because at that time, not only can your heart be open, but it also is able to filter out the noise and filter out the negative, the naysayers. People say you can't do it, you'll never do it, you can't go back on that path again, look at where you've gone, whatever it is. And therefore, your heart, against your will, your heart can open. And he says, okay, so what's going on here? The next paragraph, to be a Nisan v'Tishrei Sharei Gan Eden Psuchim. The gates of Gan Eden are open in the days of Nisan, right now. The gates of Gan Eden are open in Tishrei. Because at that time, because of the if the gates were closed, we couldn't go in there. Like, how could we like sort of feel it? How could we feel what's going on? Only people who are fitting. In Tishrei, why are they open? How are they open? Because we're down here. We're scared, right? We're having a judgment in the year ahead. But in Nisan it's a whole different level. In Nisan, it's because of the clarity of light, of kind of Hashem calling to us from Gan Eden and blinding anyone who's not worthy. Like, you gotta open. The gates of Gan Eden are open. If the gates of Gan Eden are open, guess what I have to do? I have to open up my little Gan Eden. I have to open up my heart. I have to open up my mind, right? And I go in. And that's what we're asking. And he quotes an Aramaic prayer where it says, please let me bring in all of these holy, vibes into me. V'yesh lomar, underline lines, shekach yanida, gam misharei alev. He says, if the gates of Gan Eden are open up there, well, the gates of our hearts are open too. And it's cool he says the gates of our hearts, because if you know the heart, where my doctor's here, the heart has what? The heart has chambers. Very cool, right? The heart has chambers. So those chambers are open in a good way, metaphorically, right? Gam b'sharei alev, shal kol panim b'leilei pesach halavavo shel Yisrael niftachim b'asher azu leil shimurim mikochas hachitzonim. Beautiful chiddush. So he says, because on Seder night, when your father would tell over his story every year, of redemption, from the camps, right? What was happening? His heart was open. Your hearts are just so everyone's hearts are open, and you're protected. It's what we call it Leil Shimurim. Who are we being protected from? Baruch Hashem, believe I know we're okay right now, right? You're safeguarded from the chitzonim. You don't allow all of that noise, all of the other voices, all of the secular world, all of that stuff. It's not allowed in. Hashem's protecting you. And what's he doing? He's literally protecting the entrance. And it's not just he protected the doorway, on a home. He's protecting the doorway of Gan Eden and the doorways of our hearts, our minds, and our souls to open up that none of that negativity, none of the naysaying can come in, and it's only kedusha that we can reap, that we can internalize. So he says, just like that's the imagery of Mashiach. That's the Messianic era, where we'll be able to be protected. There won't be those kochos achitzonim anymore, those outside influences, and we're just going to be able to bask in the salvation of the Jewish people. Shem hipuch kosat ha'ela, how temat halev, which is the exact opposite of that poison that's injected, the cynicism, right, the skepticism, all of that stuff that like closes up our hearts and our minds from spiritual growth. V'chein hu inyan dal koser shalel pesach she'orot kibohin nichnasim l'labot Yisrael. So that's when we're drinking the arba kosos. And Amir Hashem, it should be a bigger cup and a bigger cup and a bigger cup, like the Kutzker also said, or like Rav Simcha Bunim said to the Kutzker. And the lights, the spiritual energy, we should imbibe it, literally, just like we're imbibing the wine, we should imbibe that spiritual energy, and it'll awaken us and inspire us to connect even further to Hashem, to our people, and to the entirety of the Torah and Torah Yisrael. And in that zechus, Emir Hashem, we should all reach out, we should all call out to Hashem on Seder night and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, enough with the shvuyim, enough with the chatufim, enough with the war. We should only see lifting up the kos Yeshuos Esa, Ub'Shem Hashem Ekra, B'Mher B'Yameinu, Amen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, l'zakas Yisrael, Ficha Chivdam Termitz Shnemar, Adam Echafetz Man Tzid.